This is Brenna Quigley, your personal geologist and terroir guide. Join me on a road trip through the geologic history of your favorite wine regions around the world. This is Roadside Terroir. Season 2, Burgundy's Côte d'Or, is made possible by our Season 2 partners, Becky Wasserman Co, Paulee, and Acker Wines. We're determined to keep this content free and accessible for everyone. We're still actively fundraising for this season and future seasons of the show. To learn more about sponsorship opportunities, please get in touch by emailing us at contact@roadsideterroir.com. If you'd like to support our show personally, please consider becoming an insider or donating to become a Season 2 patron. Insiders and patrons have access to lots of cool stuff, including extra photos, illustrations, and extended interviews with all our guests. To learn more, check out our website, roadsideterroir.com, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Please don't drink and drive, and remember to keep your eyes on the road. This episode contains explicit language. We would like to thank Hôtel Central Beaune for helping to make this episode possible. Make sure to check out this newly renovated boutique hotel located just steps away from the beautiful Hospice du Beaune next time you're in town. This is part 2 of episode 1. We're picking up right where we left off, on our way into the vineyards of Beaune.
When you drive through Beaune, you don't see the vineyards. So people don't see Beaune as a wine commune. They see it as the capital for wine in Burgundy, but they don't see it as a place where you produce wine. Beaune, unfortunately, now is more known for the town itself, is known for the hospice, but it's not really known for its wines.
This is David Quoi of Domaine de Quoi. We've piled into one of his vineyard vans and are headed out to visit the vineyards. David is a young, energetic winemaker who has firmly planted his flag in the vineyards of Beaune. He points out that the perception of Beaune as a winemaking village has really struggled, and goes on to say that even in a world that can't get enough Burgundy these days, the wines are still shockingly hard to sell.
Back in the days, the best sites of Beaune were really among the top vineyards overall in Burgundy. It has changed now because every time you ask somebody who makes Beaune wines, they will tell you that it's probably their most difficult wine to sell when they have a range of wine. So there are very few domains making Beaune wines based in Beaune, actually. I can barely name 10 different ones. And half of them you will probably never have heard of before. There's a lack of grower identity in Beaune, in a sense.
Before Domaine de Quoi, David was the winemaker for the well-respected négociant Camille Giroux. Then, in 2005, David and a group of private investors purchased a domain called Domaine du Chet, which consisted of vineyard holdings primarily based in Beaune, as well as on the nearby hill of Courton.
It was affordable, okay, but I also saw the potential of the way the people we took over from, the way they were farming, the vines were really well taken care of. And I tasted the wines they were making, and I think, there's great potential. Okay, it's big. Okay, there's a lot of diversity in terms of styles of wine you can make in Beaune. But overall, potentially, if the farming is right, for me, there's potential to make great wines in Beaune as well, even though they are not really famous yet.
Part of the reason David believes Beaune has this reputation is ironically tied to the reason Beaune became famous in the first place, the négociants.
It's important to remind people sometimes of the obvious, is that it's called the Côte de Beaune and the Côte de Nuit, not the Côte de Volnay and the Côte de Beaune, So what happened?
It's not a question of quality of what's being produced. The big négociants who produce Beaune, like Bouchard, they have over 40 hectares of Beaune. They have almost 10% of the appellation. But when you taste Beaune, it's not especially what comes first. They have Clos de Bèze as well, for example.
David has become a true advocate for the wines of Beaune. Even his Instagram handle is Drink Beaune, and is completely committed to lifting up what he believes is an underappreciated region.
You have some producers like David Quoi,
Here's Daniel Jonas again.
And kind of reminding people that these are great wines and that they're not just négociant. And I think it needs to have a leader like that and a locomotive like David Croix to show that these are not just négociant wines and that they're grower wines also and they're wines of great quality.
As you know, Beaune is the third largest commune in terms of vineyards after Meursault and Gevrey. So it's a rather large appellation. What's important to note also is that it's mostly Premier Cru, it's 75% Premier Cru, and no Bourgogne, like no generic, no Grand Cru, and mostly Premier Cru, 42 different ones. And the village level vineyards are really located on the south of Beaune, towards Pommard. So basically on the northern side where we're going now, it's almost exclusively Premier Cru. So I think it's quite unusual.
David explains that his customers who come to taste at the domaine typically have two different perceptions of what they expect the wines from Beaune to taste like, which typically depends on which part of the village the wines come from.
So you have a group of people, they will tell me, oh, Beaune, they make just pretty wines. Every time they taste a Beaune with a bit more structure, they are surprised. And for me, these are people who are used to taste wines from the northern side of Beaune, because that area, especially bottom part of the slope, you tend to have that roundness, that easiness in the wines. Whereas when you go south towards Pommard, in general, I find the wines to be a bit more serious, a bit more concentrated when you go south, in general. So I have some people say, oh yeah, but Beaune wines are tannic, it's not my taste. I hear those two different things, which are quite opposite.
We've only been driving a couple of minutes, and we're already beyond the outer edges of the city and headed up the surprisingly steep slope of the Montagne des Beaunes.
So here we are, almost all you can see is Premier Cru. You have Marconnet, you have l'Écu, Claude l'Écu, les Bressans, les Toussaint. It's all Premier Cru, so it shows you that it's really...
As David pointed out, the vineyards on this northern side of the appellation are often known for being soft, round, and pretty. This is primarily because of the significant alluvial fan that connects Beaune with the neighboring appellation Savigny-le-Beaune, which is also known for producing wines that are pretty and round. We're driving up a little vineyard road that makes a diagonal along the slope. To our right is the relatively flat vineyard Les Saint-Vignes, a great example of that pretty alluvial style David is talking about. On our left, as we continue up the slope, is a vineyard called Les Bressans. It's pretty big, so the bottom portion of it can be known to produce some pleasant alluvial wines, but the upper portion is just the opposite. We drive up and around the vineyard until we arrive at the very top edge of the slope.
It's high for Burgundy overall, I think. You know, it's like 300 meters here where we are. And you're at 225 when you're in the middle of Saint-Vignes. So that plays a role.
Beaune Bressans is one of David's standout wines. The wines are unique and distinctive, just like the vineyard itself.
Vocabulary, have you ever found a word for en dévers?
No,
Me neither.
I just do this.
David gestures with his hands to show that the slope is tilted unevenly to the north. The French term for this is en dévers.
Yes, I almost killed myself once in this vineyard. So ever since, we decided to plow with a horse.
Once you notice the shape of this top corner of the slope, you'll notice it every time you drive past these vineyards. In addition to the aspect of the vineyard, the geology is distinctive too. This top portion is made up of something called grès-lité, which is a deposit of small, angular, white limestone gravels. They're called cryoclastic gravels because the only way they can form is when hard limestone gets fractured and infiltrated by water. Then, later, the water freezes, expands, and causes the limestone to explode. The result is that you get very loose, light, gravelly soils that are extremely calcareous because of all of those fresh limestone edges. This is a harsh environment for the vines, which creates a distinctive texture in the wine.
For me, there's a better sense of minerality. There's something a little drier on the tannins when you are up on the slope. There's a strong stony character on the tannins, I find here. Every year I get that sense of limestone finish, I would say.
We'll talk more about grès-lité with our friendly neighborhood geologist Françoise Vanier in the coming episodes. Creative, bold, and attuned, David is considering planting white grapes here, which is allowed within the AOC system for Beaune.
Replacement holes. Oh, wild boar.
Really?
See? It's rather fresh.
Back in the van, we make our way back down the slope. this time driving down the southern boundary of Bressande. On our right is Beaune's most prized vineyard, Les Grèves. Beaune Grève is also a very large Premier Cru vineyard, with a true patchwork of producers of all sizes within it. This includes small producers like David, the incredibly revered Lafarge family, and right in the center of Beaune Grève is Bouchard's famed Vigne de l'Enfant Jésus, aptly nicknamed the Baby Jesus wine, especially by professionals like myself who can't speak French.
When you look back in the history where Beaune was considered really one of the top villages in the Côte, Beaune Grève was the same price tag as Chambertin-Claude-Besse, for example.
According to Dr. Laval, Beaune Grève was one of the highest classified wines of the time, and historically it was often equated to some of the most prized Pinot Noir vineyards in the Côte de Nuit. David makes wine from each of these very different vineyards, Les Saint-Vignes, Bressande, and Grève, which are all right next to each other. When you taste through them, they perfectly display how different the wines of Beaune can be from one another. At the bottom of the slope, sandwiched between the outer edges of the city and the massive slope of Beaune Premier Cru, lies a little slice of village vineyard called Les Mariages, and within it, a little secret garden, Clos des Mariages, the very first biodynamically farmed vineyard in the Côte d'Or.
Et donc en 2017, dans les vignes que j'ai arrachées, j'avais un vieux bout ici que j'ai arraché et qu'on a replanté il y a 3 ans.
Ok.
Voilà.
Avec les fruitiers.
Et avec l'agroforesterie en même temps.
The fruit trees.
We've left David for now and have met up with the under-the-radar, epically mustached cult legend, Jean-Claude Rateau.
Oui, bonjour, je suis Jean-Claude Rateau, viticulteur à Beaune.
Jean-Claude prefers to stick to French, so Paul will help to translate. Jean-Claude is joined by his assistant winemaker, Amel, who now leads the cellar and has continued to push the domaine in the natural direction of more natural winemaking techniques to complement their way ahead of the curve farming.
Collaboratrice directe, elle fait toutes les vinifs, tout le suivi des vins, okay. Elle dirige l'équipe. Maintenant, je fais plus rien.
Apparently, Amel does everything.
So my name is Amel Noir. I have 38 now.
All the winemaking.
I'm working in the vineyard since 2003.
All the technical direction. And he's joking that he just doesn't do anything anymore.
I'm making vinification since 5-6 years. With Jean-Claude Rateau.
Jean-Claude tells us the story of how he first discovered biodynamics and how it started a ripple effect throughout the Côte d'Or.
Il a classé tout le scientifique de Goethe.
So he sees an article, tu vois l'article.
Voilà, donc je me suis inscrit à un stage de botanique avec Xavier Florent.
He signed up for a botany class. He was 17 years old.
Voilà, c'était dans une des premières fermes en biodynamie en France, c'était dans le Cher, c'était au domaine de l'Ormois. Alors, j'ai rien compris. Mais par contre, ça m'a fasciné.
He didn't understand a thing, but he was fascinated.
Mais je me suis dit, c'est ça que je veux faire.
But he said, that's what I want to do.
Et là, j'ai vu que la biodynamie, c'était très simple comme méthode. Et ça donnait des résultats extraordinaires. Voilà, et quand je me suis installé en biodynamie dès la première année.
And that's where he saw that, in fact, biodynamics were very simple and gave extraordinary results. So when he took over officially the vines in 1979, he was directly in biodynamics.
Ensuite, 4-5 ans après, on avait toute la bande de copains avec Emmanuel Giboulot, Didier Monchauvet, tout ça. On était tous en biodynamie, donc Pascal Marchand aux Épinaux. Oui. Donc il y a eu toute une dynamique qui s'est mise en place.
And 4 or 5 years later, all the buddies, Emmanuel Giboulot, Pascal Marchand from Claude des Épinaux,
Didier Monchauvet,
Dominique Derain,
Thierry Guyot à l'époque.
Thierry Guyot de
Saint-Romain, qui a arrêté depuis.
Okay, in Saint-Romain. They were friends. They were fascinated by it.
Voilà, puis ensuite, très peu de temps après, il y a Anne-Claude Leflèvre qui s'est intéressée à la biodynamie, qui a commencé chez elle. Et c'est ce qui a permis à tous les grands domaines de démarrer la biodynamie.
And shortly after, Anne-Claude arrived on the scene, and that's what started the biodynamic movement in Burgundy.
We've mentioned biodynamics a few times so far in this episode, and as we have places to be, we won't get into the details right now, but promise to do a deeper dive in future episodes. Very quickly, biodynamics is a little bit like organic farming plus. It includes a sense of mystical philosophies that consider things like the phases of the moon and views the vineyard as a complete ecosystem. Like I said, more to come.
fait 40 ans. Ouais.
40 years of biodynamics.
Ouais. Ça sent la vanille, c'est extraordinaire l'odeur du sol. L'odeur du sol, c'est les
You should
champignons. Hein.
smell chemical classic. It's true. The difference in smell is, and also the looseness.
Ça, c'est bon signe. Oui, tout à fait.
Today, some of the greatest vineyards in Burgundy are farmed biodynamically, including the greatest vineyard of them all, Romanée Conti. And here is where it all began. Standing in this vineyard is truly standing in a piece of history.
Dès que j'ai commencé en biodynamie, j'ai vu la plante complètement changer.
The first thing you saw was the plant completely changing.
Et puis je pense, mais là c'est plus difficile à démontrer, des vins plus aromatiques dès le départ. Et ça, je pense que c'est quand même des grandes caractéristiques.
It's harder to demonstrate, but he thinks just more aromatic wines from the beginning.
Donc quand j'ai commencé, et puis alors aussi au niveau du sol, une beaucoup plus grande diversité dans l'herbe, puisque je peux avoir jusqu'à 25 herbes différentes, alors qu'à côté il y en avait 4 ou 5. Quoi.
Yeah, and much greater diversity in the grasses that grow.
Donc tous des bons signes, donc j'ai jamais arrêté, j'ai toujours continué.
And because these were all great signs, visual signs in a way, he never stopped. He just went deeper and deeper.
Jean-Claude describes the terroir of Clos de Mariage as in the classic style of Beaune. The soils are alluvial, with rounded cobbles and some heavier clay, which gives that little bit of oomph on the palate.
Voilà, sol beaucoup plus noir, moins argileux, hein, beaucoup plus, comme on dit, en semoule.
Like semolina, like couscous.
Voilà, très belle, ouais c'est ça, hein, très belle structure. C'est pas le même parfum. Ça c'est vraiment une terre absolument merveilleuse. Là c'est super, de l'autre côté du stade, il n'y a que ça de terre, donc là-bas ça crève de soif. Les étés secs. Voilà.
So here there's about a foot of soil, and just on the other side of the football stadium there's 15 centimeters, and it dies of thirst every summer.
Attends, on est à côté de la source de lait, qui est une source sacrée. Hein. Il y a eu un dolmen du temps du néolithique. Ensuite, Ensuite, il y a eu un temple d'Apollon gallo-romain. Et après, il y a eu la petite abbaye au 5e siècle, la fondation d'une abbaye burgonde,
There was a
chrétienne
dolmen.
et burgonde. Il y avait des sarcophages en pierre avec des squelettes de 2 mètres. Dans les annales
Des squelettes de 2 mètres.
Ouais,
Des gens grands?
des grands burgondes, oui.
Okay.
Ouais.
So we're on a sacred space because a lot of the Celtic Gallo-Roman are built on sacred spaces. Mostly that, puis sacré, ça veut dire avec l'eau en général.
Ouais. Ah, bien sûr, c'est une
It's
source
linked,
sacrée.
it's linked to water. So there's a sacred source, l'aigle.
Quand elle a été fouillée, ils ont trouvé des ex-voto. Donc tu sais, c'était des offrandes à la déesse de la source, Bélène, pour être guéri. Donc avec des organes en métal ou des trucs comme ça.
The goddess of the source was Belen, which is where bone comes from. It was Belen, Belna, bone. There was Celtic with dolmens, and there was a Gallo-Roman one, and there was a 5th century abbey too, where they found sarcophagus with skeletons that were from people that were 2 meters high. Those were the Burgondes, so the people who invaded Burgundy actually and gave their name to Burgundy, the Burgundians. And it's right there, we just passed the source.
40 ans sans voir le médecin.
40 years without going to the doctor. Ouais.
Maybe it helps the
Voilà.
football team win.
Et du coup, l'énergie, ça aide l'équipe de football ou pas?
As we get in the car to drive away, we pass by the sacred source, or natural spring, that Jean-Claude was referring to. And I can't help but feel a little bit more convinced of the supernatural, or at least the spiritual side of things, than when we drove in.
So just where these trees are, that's the source, the leg. This kind of looks like a little shrine, actually.
It does. It's like big old trees.
Yeah, and there's a little, if you look to the right there, there's a little
Oh.
step.
Oh, we should see here.
I've picnicked here in the past to the right. Basically, we're going back the way we.
We're now heading to the southern edge of the Beaune appellation, which borders the neighboring village of Pommard. Remember, this is the side David told us was known for more structure and tannin. This will be our final vineyard stop in Beaune, and we're joined again by Lauren Boss from Maison Drouhin to visit one of their most iconic vineyards and the first major land purchase of the domaine.
100 years ago, actually, because we celebrated the 100-year anniversary acquisition of the Clos des Mouches, the famous.
On the drive over, Lauren explains how Clos des Mouches first gained its stellar reputation thanks to a famous Parisian restaurant in the Roaring '20s.
And he was really good friend with the director of Maxims in Paris. And he was I don't know how to say, in the 2030s, les années folles, the crazy years. I don't know, in France, it's very famous. People were having a lot of fun, so drinking a lot of wine. This restaurant was the place to be. That's how the Clos des Mouches white became so famous. Famous people were going to this place and drink this white, amazing wine, and it's starting to spread, and that's how it became.
Clos des Mouches is a very large, varied, and complex vineyard, and Drouhin owns almost all of it. Here, we got our first taste of what will continue to be a theme throughout our exploration of the Côte d'Or. The idea that balance and a sense of completeness can come together in a complex place to become greater than the sum of its parts.
It's a very nice view with a little sun on the church.
Oh, yeah.
In Beaune. You see when it's working with the horse. They cannot go with the tractor here, so it's only horses. So this is red, this is white, this is white. After that, it's red.
So it's a total patchwork. It's
total,
not
exactly,
one
patchwork.
section or another.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And we plant whites where whites were. It's been 100 years, but we're still learning why Pinot Noir here and why Chardonnay there. The magic of the Clos des Mouches.
Yeah.
When you see up there, you see it going down.
It's like its own little...
Yeah, la montagne.
Yeah.
Almost la montagne.
Yeah.
But it's close to la montagne. La montagne is right behind.
Yeah,
it, so.
yeah. Kind of isolated, even though it's in the middle of sea of vines.
The vineyard is complex on all sorts of levels. White grapes are here, there's red grapes planted there, rose are planted this way and that. It's also situated on a hill within the slope, which creates varied topography and aspects facing in all sorts of directions.
And just behind this plot, it's Pommard again, and then it's Beaune.
The vineyard is also located right along the edge of the boundary between Beaune and Pommard. Françoise Vanier has done a detailed geologic study of the site and has confirmed that, believe it or not, it's complicated. There are areas of shallow limestone, other areas of richer marls, and even some distinct patches of dolomitized limestone, which we'll get into in our next episode where we look closely at the geology of Pommard. But again, the thing to remember here is that even with all of this variation, or in fact because of it, this site produces something magical.
I think it's the magic of the Clos des Mouches. If we started to make a cuvée from every plot, so it wouldn't be so amazing. It's the mystery around it. We've known only 1 or 2 generations of vines, and it would take, 300 years, maybe more, to know. And you don't plant for a year, you plant for 50, 60, 70 years.
Philippe, Lauren's uncle, manages the vineyards for the entire Drouhin estate, and was also the one who pushed the estate into first organic and then biodynamic farming, purely because he felt it was the best decision for the vineyards. They haven't yet pursued certification, but being in the vineyards with Lauren makes it clear that each portion of the vineyard is carefully cared for, and that the future of this massive and historic négociant is in good hands.
Do you know why it's called the Clos des Mouches? That's the mouche à miel, it's the honeybees. So it was a good spot for them to live and do their job.
I mentioned earlier that the term négociant is a bit tricky. And to be honest, I'm still sorting it out myself. Drouhin is definitely a négociant. They purchase a good amount of fruit and or wine in addition to the 80 or so hectares that they farm themselves. The image that comes to mind when you hear négociant fits here. You think big, giant houses that make tons of wine, although in this case in a very thoughtful and responsible manner. However, as we alluded to earlier, the term négociant started to become a bit of a bad word when the quality of the wines dropped, along with the integrity of some of these big houses in the second half of the 20th century.
You know, it's ironic also when I think about négociants. You think about the small growers. Today, they're all négociants. They all have the status of a négociant. They can buy grapes when they have to. And the only way a young winemaker or producer in Burgundy who's aspiring to create a domain can exist is if they buy grapes. Because the land is too
So, in today's world, many of these smaller growers are actually négociants themselves. And in a twist of irony that can only happen in the real world, the bad word of négociant has been turned on its head by a group of young, hungry outsiders who want to make wine in Burgundy. Right now, we're seeing the rise of the micro-négociant.
Yeah, I'm obviously German. I came to Burgundy for a first internship in 2010.
This is Katharina Saad of Les Oreilles, one of the most recent overnight sensations in the world of Burgundian micro-négociants. After a long day in the vineyards, we've ended up back in Beaune, at Katharina's new winery.
I did everything right from the beginning. That was cool. And during this time, I met my husband, and this is the reason I'm still here. It was really a private decision, but which is great. Everything fell into place.
Before wine, Katharina started her career as a professional chef and worked in a few fancy Michelin-starred restaurants in Germany, which eventually led her into the wine world.
I was already pregnant with our twins. And then I worked for the next 8 years for several domains. Sometimes I did 2 to 3 domains in a year. My husband came, my mother and her husband came to watch the children, so they spent more than half of the time with me in South Africa, but I was almost 3 months there. Yeah, it was quite an organization. And
her wines are like her, charming, fun, and totally vibrant. They're respectful of their place and of the history of Burgundy, while clearly also having their own refreshing identity. It isn't easy as an outsider to work your way into the wine community of the Côte d'Or.
I'm not making wine to see my name on the bottle. I wanted to find my place, but that's a thing in Burgundy. It's all family owned, and there will be a son or a daughter taking over. And I wanted to find my place, but after 8 years, my husband was one of the first persons to say, "Okay, t'as fait le tour, on arrête. Tu veux pas te mettre sur ton compte? You're ready now, do it." And we had possibility to buy our first plot. So I'm like, oh, that's going to be my little garden. I can go there with the bicycle. It's very close to the house. But no. A couple of months later, I said, let's do it with this and buying grapes as well. Mm-hmm.
Katharina farms a few plots in addition to the grapes she purchases. And sometimes, because she's so passionate about the entire process, she even requests the opportunity to help farm some of these parcels so that she can do it the way that she wants. Basically, as biodynamically as she can possibly manage.
What I try to do is getting more and more collaboration, not just buying grapes. So I propose right from the first vintage on, and that's the easiest part, I propose I pick. So that they don't have to think about it, because everyone is stressed during harvest. And I'm like, I go when I want. The advantage for me is I can choose the harvest date and the maturity levels.
But this is a delicate balance. There are relationships to maintain here, and this extra work can actually be seen as a significant risk by the landowners. With the challenges of the past few vintages, it's a lot of weight on her shoulders.
I hope they let me continue. It's scary.
Katharina's winery is in Beaune, and she and her family also live right here. So it was no coincidence that her first plot was Beaune-Prévol.
It's super important for me to be close to Beaune. I'm super flexible, and sometimes I decide instantly what I'm going to do, if I'm going to work in the vineyards, in which one, depending on the weather and the family organization. I could not drive to Marsanne. It's a shame, but maybe one day.
I love that Katharina says this about Beaune, because it immediately makes me think of something Lauren said earlier about when her great-grandfather Maurice decided to purchase land in the Clos des Mouches.
He had to find something where you could go back and forth in one day with a horse, because they had no car at that time. So Beaune Premier Cru was his choice.
There are so many links between people here, even when it seems like they're doing such very different things.
It gives a chance to a ton of people and a ton of outsiders to make wine, and you can pretty much do what you want. So there's a lot of freedom in the micro-négoce.
This freedom exists for both the outsiders who have no way of inheriting great vineyards, and also with the young Burgundians, who can do their own thing as they learn to find their way within their already established family businesses. The Wasserman Company has always been known for supporting and promoting people first, with the strict belief that when you're working with the right people, passionate, caring, good people, the quality of the wines will always follow. So it's no surprise that they're choosing to work with many new young growers who work with some combination of farmed and purchased fruit.
Katerina Sade at Les Oreilles, Vin Saison. Jean Trèves started as a micro-négoce and then a négociant, and Bastien Volber with Les Tombés. Benjamin Gilbert, who nobody has heard about yet because his first vintage will be bottled, I think, in the spring, but he may age it longer. Gautron d'Anneau. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Charles Lachaud was mentioned. I don't know how much wine Benjamin Leroux had in the beginning, but I think it was only 5-6 appellations. But he certainly started as micro-négoce, even though he's not one anymore.
There are many others, of course. Cassiope, Van Noe, Maison Harbor, Le Grappin, and many others that I don't know of personally. And again, they're all doing what they can. Farming here, helping out there, buying from wherever they get the opportunity, and doing their best to express the place and themselves all at the same time. The reality of Burgundy is that nothing here is black and white. The négociants are farming vineyards, and the domains are buying grapes. But there's a repetition of themes as well. In Burgundy, you're always pulled towards the land, so if you start out buying grapes, you can't help but have the desire to farm them yourself. And if you're farming your own little plot in one place, you can't help but be curious about the potential of the terroirs in another. The added flexibility and diversity of this style of working and living is certainly propelling Burgundy into the next phase of its history. A history in the making that will be dominated by the realities of a changing climate, a more diverse community, and a more global market for the wines. The best way to end a long day in Burgundy is to find yourself a little restaurant with a big wine list, a couple of good, geeky friends, and spend some time with the wines themselves. We often end up at the little spot across from the church called Maison du Colombier, where we order a few bottles, taste them, discuss them, drink them, and repeat. There are layers upon layers of soil, rock, history, and intent to discover in each bottle and every pour. Not everything is going to make sense right away, but that's why we're here, and I guess that just means we have more to taste.
What should we taste next? Should we do Grève or should we do Boisson? Do Boisson, Pertuiseau, Grève. Yeah, we should do that. Try to find the Grèzlité character, if we can find it. So you see that sense of there's a certain darkness in the fruit, but you will see when you get on the palate, you have that grippy finish, like stony finish, that for me is really a signature of Boisson.
It smells more, like you said, like cool and kind of like foresty.
Yes. Yeah, there's also something like more herbal, like a bit fresher in a sense. You know, at first I was very disturbed with that finish, with that grainy tannin. So I said I'm going to pick later. Maybe the tannins are underripe. Then I realized it didn't change anything, except making the fruit a little darker. So I said it's the terroir. That's how I learned that it was coming from where the plant is growing. That's really how I figured that out. That almost chalky character on the tannin.
The Côte d'Or is the best place to taste wines from the same vineyard made by multiple different people. And the beauty here is that you get to decide what you want to focus on. You can focus on the character of the vineyard and the threads that unite the producers within each site, or you can choose to focus on the vignerons and see if you can taste what they are trying to tell you about themselves.
Even if I open bottle, it can be quite changing. They're so alive. It changes all the time.
Et on a le côté beaucoup plus cerise noire. Hein, c'est moins épicé que le Clos des Mariages. On est vraiment sur un autre type de terroir.
Less spicy, a lot more dark fruit, black cherry, and I find also that you see the structure.
Ça, c'est le Beaune classique. Ça, c'est vraiment le joli Beaune village.
To him, that's classic Beaune.
You can choose different things on different days, or both, or neither. You can choose to place your full attention on the person or people sitting in front of you and let the wine be the music in the background. It's up to you.
So mon poulain is the Pastorin. That's the label with the chapeau with the heads. Yeah. This year, in 2020, it's 50% Gamay and 50% Pinot. Mon poulain is in bottle.
The nose is already spectacular.
That's everybody's darling wine.
Even mine last year. You know, it's like, have one wine, mon poulain.
I love exploring wines this way with friends, letting the conversation flow in and out of wine speak, and letting the wines tell you what they have to say when they want to say it. Beaune is the historic centerpiece of the Côte d'Or and is a huge part of the reason Burgundy exists as it does today. And it's the literal first stop for most visitors, including you and me. The vineyards here may not be as prized as they once were, at least compared to their famous neighbors. But with Beaune's history, vibrant community, and the quality of its terroirs, it might just be Burgundy's future.
The wines from Beaune are not very appreciated, but it's a great value for money because they're more cheaper than the Côte de Nuit village. This is Premier Cru. I think it's the same price as the Chambol Musigny. And I like them because they are...
potentially, there is no Grand Cru in Beaune. Potentially, for me, the most complete
It's shocking to me
wine,
that it's not better known and it's not in greater demand.
Potentially,
and
it's
it doesn't
our
sell
little
better.
baby
I mean,
Grand Cru, I would say. We don't have any Grand Cru, and I don't think we should pretend on getting any Grand Cru in Beaune. But this is potentially the best terroir.
I was talking with Clotilde Lafarge yesterday night, and she told me, even her, they have Beaune Premier Cru et Gros, les Écros, and it's always harder close to Côte de Nuit, and it tastes really nice.
And still, it's something it's not the first bottle you grab when you're in the restaurant, and that's a shame. So since I'm having my own Beaune plot, I taste more Beaune, and I like Prévol especially because it's a very pure expression of Burgundy Pinot Noir.
I love wines from Beaune. I love them.
Thank you. No, me too. But I think it's just people don't know about Beaune.
It's still everything is kind of open for Beaune, which is great.
I think the wines of Beaune are going to find a much larger following. They're more affordable. People will discover how delicious they are and how they can age also.
On a des beaux terroirs à Beaune. C'est extraordinaire, Beaune.
There's so much to experience throughout the Côte d'Or, and we're just getting started. Are some soils destined to grow red grapes over white grapes? In our next episode, we'll take a deep dive into the geology of the Côte de Beaune with our hero Françoise Vanier in search of the answer to this question. We'll travel from Savigny-le-Beaune and the hill of Corton all the way down to Pommard and Volnay. Make sure to hit subscribe so you'll be along for the ride. This episode is dedicated to the memory of Becky Wasserman Co and to her husband, Russell Co, who have showed the world the meaning of Burgundy, one home-cooked meal at a time. This episode is made possible by our Season 2 sponsors, Becky Wasserman Co, La Paulee, and Acker Wines. Want to celebrate the release of Season 2 with us? We'll be pouring at the La Paulee Grand Tastings in New York on March 12th and in Los Angeles on March 19th. See you there. Roadside Terroir is hosted and produced by me, Brenna Quigley, recording and sound engineering by Nick Canepa, and original music and sound design by Jeff Alvarez. This season wouldn't be possible without the support from all of you. Thank you for listening, sharing, emailing, and supporting us however you can. Check out our website, roadsideterroir.com, to learn how you can stay in touch and how to support this season by becoming a Roadside Insider or a Season 2 patron. If you want to learn more about the history of Burgundy, we highly recommend checking out some of the comprehensive reference books on the region by Jasper Morris, Anthony Hansen, Clive Coates, and Matt Kramer. Thank you to our guests, Jasper Morris, Paul Wasserman, Daniel Jonas, Lorraine Boss, David Quah, Jean-Claude Rateau, Katerina Saad, and some extra cameos by Raj Parr, Christina Rasmussen, Abe Schoner, Nina West, and Daniel Callan. Thank you to Jerusha Frost, Issa Islami, Summer Stabe, Michael Sager, Julia Wiggin, Françoise Vanier, and everyone else who helped make this episode a reality.
I like that. You have to be committed to like be the Burgundy lover.
And it's almost like you need a guide or guru to introduce you to it. So you need a great sommelier, you need a great wine merchant, you need, sure, the press, a reviewer, you need a geologist, you need, can you tell me what you're trying to say? And then
Need a fucking podcast.
Oh, stupid me. You need a great podcast. You need